Live from Citizen TV, this is Tonight with Sam Gituku.
Hello there, thank you for choosing Citizen TV on this 13th day of February 2025. And tonight on Data Point, we are looking at the African Union election in numbers. Of course, Raila Odinga, who is contesting to be the AUC chair, will need 33 counties to win that election. I'll be telling the details about that. But talking about Africa, it is divided into 5 regions that I'll be describing for you. Those 5 regions are supposed to produce 8 positions. One of them is the one that Raila Odinga is seeking, that of the chairperson of the African Union Commission. And talking about that, we will have the answers on the 15th of February 2025, which is in just about 2 days, the Saturday that we'll be waiting to hear from the Assembly of the Heads of State as they get to vote and give us the results. The results will come from Addis Ababa, which is the capital of Ethiopia. You may call it the capital of Africa. And our crew is still there, the crew of Leto, Olale, and Olive Barrows. They'll be joining us later on in the bulletin to give us the latest from that side of the continent. But first, here are the top stories tonight.
The sentence will be as follows: a fine of 1 million in default, 2 years imprisonment.
Punishing corruption. Former Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waititu to serve 12 years in jail or pay a fine of 53 million shillings over graft charges.
Over 150 clinics have been forced to close, affecting more than 72,000. And again, I repeat, affecting 72,000 people.
Casualties of Trump orders: 35,000 job losses, 72,000 HIV patients suffer as Trump orders on USAID take effect.
Nilikuwa nafuatilia Ngrashote bibi yangu. Aliaga 1997. Mpaka wa leo niliambiwa niende nikangoje. Nikienda kwa Huduma Center naambiwa imetengenezwa, inangojea kulipwa tu. Bei iko hapo tu, inangojea kulipwa, hii alipwa treasury ina pesa.
Agony and frustration at the Pensions Department. Ombudsman orders officials to clear pending claims within 60 days. Impunity, Parliament and the courts, the Trinity at home, and prayers in Addis Ababa on the News Gang.
Our sign language interpreter is Yola Nzale. Former Kiambu County Governor Ferdinand Waititu has been sentenced to 12 years in prison or pay a fine of 53.5 million shillings after being found guilty of receiving kickbacks from a contractor for a 588 million shilling road tender. Additionally, he has been barred from holding public office for the next 10 years. The ruling delivered on Thursday also saw his co-accused, including his wife, receive varying sentences. Citizen TV's Ben Kirui has the details.
10 a.m. on Thursday, former County Chief Ferdinand Waititu arrived at the Milimani courts for his date with destiny in a multi-million-dollar corruption case that led to his conviction.
The court should then consider the following aggravating factors.
The stern tone of Chief Magistrate Thomas Nzioki as he outlined the aggravating factors in the case was a clear signal that Waititu and his co-accused will be facing lengthy prison sentences. And true to that, when the anti-corruption court delivered its ruling, Waititu was sentenced to 12 years behind bars or a fine of Kenya shillings 53.5 million for 5 counts, including conflict of interest in the irregular award of a Kenya shillings 588 million road tender.
Your sentence will be as follows: a fine of 1 million in default, 2 years imprisonment. Still on count number 1, you pay a mandatory fine of 51,249,000, equal to 2 times the benefits, and in default then you serve 7 years imprisonment.
As part of the ruling delivered on Thursday, Waititu was also barred from vying for any political seat for the next 10 years. His wife, Susan Ndung'u, who was also convicted in the case, received a 1-year prison sentence or a fine of $500,000.
500,000, and that's the only sentence for Susan. Yes, that's the only sentence that she'll carry. Now, because there are no other counts that affects her, and I've not sentenced the partnership separately.
The co-accused, Charles Chege, the director of Testimony Enterprises Limited, was sentenced to 9 years in prison or a hefty fine of Kenya shillings 295 million for fraudulently procuring the multi-million shilling road tender. His wife, Beth Wangeshu, was fined Kenya shillings 1.4 million or given the alternative of 2-year jail term. However, she secured a release after settling the fine using a Kenya shillings 4 million cash bail she had deposited earlier. A former Kiambu County officer in charge of roads, engineer Luka Mwangi, was also found guilty of abuse of office and fined Kenya shillings 21 million or sentenced to 7 years in prison for awarding the lucrative contract to an unqualified contractor.
Councillor Danson, you are the one who was first on your feet.
Following the verdict, the defense lawyers are vowed to appeal the court's decision within the 14-day window granted.
We shall be moving on both those limbs, and if we succeed to get the convicts out on bail pending appeal, the High Court will impose certain conditions to be met.
Waititu is set to serve his sentence at Industrial Area Prison alongside Chege and Mwangi, while his wife Susan Ndung'u will be incarcerated at Lang'ata Women's Prison. As the former governor is led away in handcuffs to begin his prison term at the Industrial Area Prison, the magistrate hopes the lengthy sentence will serve as a stark warning to others engaging in corruption. Ben Kiroi, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
The country's healthcare system has been hit hard by the USA's foreign aid freeze, with 35,000 workers now out of work. Non-government organizations are also raising the alarm about the fate of over 70,000 patients on ARVs who will be affected by the closure of 150 clinics offering HIV and AIDS management services. At the same time, government has now been challenged to bridge the gap left by the USA foreign aid freeze and save thousands of Kenyans from either losing their lives or regress in their treatment for HIV, AIDS, malaria and tuberculosis. Brenda Wanga reports.
Weeks after the USA slammed the brakes on foreign aid globally, the impact of that freeze in the Kenyan health sector is beginning to crystallize.
Over 150 clinics have been forced to close, affecting more than 72,000. And again, I repeat, affecting 72,000 people who rely on antiretroviral therapy.
The freeze has also seen the healthcare workforce decimated, with 35,000 men and women losing their jobs. While the U.S. government announced a waiver on life-saving activities, non-state actors in the healthcare sector say this has provided little relief and left out critical areas in the health interventions.
The children. When we miss a chance of testing a child and putting them on treatment, we can lose them in the first year of life. If we miss a chance of making sure that we stop the vertical transmission from the mother to the child, that means we are giving that child a lifetime of living with HIV. That is 70+ years of the government paying for ARVs.
That means that the patients who are likely to have had TB have not been tested because of that lack of that support. So what does that mean? That we have patients who have TB but have not been tested. So they're living among us and likely infecting others because of lack of that support.
In the aftermath of the aid freeze, the government has pledged to ensure continuity in the affected programs, but non-state actors now want less talk and more action.
But ever since the order came, and we know the impact of job losses, we know the impact of commodities we've lost, and we know the impact of interference and disruption that has resulted, we have not seen official government position commenting on this matter. And we have not seen the seriousness and the urgency on part of the government, because it is not enough to go and just assure persons who have HIV that there is enough stock of ARVs. Where there are job losses, you may have ARVs and there is nobody to dispense. So in as much as we are talking about a United States government's order, we are here also to talk to our government at the national and the county level to take the matter seriously and step in to address the gap, and also open dialogue with the U.S. government on continuity of services.
While the stop work orders have exposed the government's reliance on foreign aid for the provision of basic human rights and needs to its citizens, non-state actors are now calling on the very government to step in and ensure that these services, which are crucial and critical, are availed to its citizens without fail. Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Related to that, the country is staring at a condom shortage crisis following the funding freeze on USAID programs. Kenya has heavily relied on USAID for the free condoms distribution program, with counties with high HIV prevalence rates reporting a final stock that could last 6 months only if managed well. And as Laura Otieno now reports, stakeholders are calling for a downward review of taxes imposed on condoms and a segregation of the market to curtail a spike in new infections.
3 weeks after the freeze order by President Donald Trump, the effects are glaring, with this year's International Condom Day missing the usual flair of condoms for distribution to those in attendance. Stakeholders now pushing for a total market approach where middle and upper income Kenyans will buy condoms at a subsidized rate to ease pressure of the free condom distribution program.
It has been a challenge for us since the government introduced heavy taxation to the condoms. We shall still appeal to our partners who have been supplying us with the condoms so that the intermittent supply can be reduced.
We advocate that as you do your budgeting, you look at condom as a self-tool kit, something that you just need, and therefore you budget for it as you budget for the other things.
Kenya has an annual condom demand of 400 million pieces, with the government distributing an average of 200 million pieces. The free condom distribution program was launched in 2001 to stifle the growing infections of HIV. The youth now calling for urgent interventions to the shortage.
Yeah, there's shortage of condoms and whatever, and even to study the piece itself inaanza na health. Unafaa ukiwa na study unakuwa sawa. So serikali kidogo condom.
With reduced donor funding in the space of healthcare, various stakeholders are now calling for the zero rating of crucial commodities and for the government to invest in preventive services in order to save the country's health systems. Laura Otieno, Citizen TV.
So another story now. The Commission on Administrative Justice has asked the Director of Pensions to pay all pending 144 claims within 60 days, failure to which they will pursue means to declare him unfit to hold public office. The Office of the Ombudsman, which made an impromptu visit to Bima House to assess service delivery, says the department was ranked amongst the institutions with the highest complaints. Gatete Njoroge reports on the agony of elderly persons who have made countless trips to Bima House in vain.
In light of the rising cases of complaints of poor service delivery at Pensions Department, commissioners from the Ombudsman Office made an impromptu visit at Bima House. Led by the Commission Chairperson Charles Dulo, the team landed at an institution that is reported to be the source of retired civil servants' pain and frustration. Their thoughts of enjoying old age at home has been turned into endless frustrating journey in pursuit of their rights. After paying for pension for over 30 years, they served the nation in different capacities.
What happens when a retiree comes here? How do you process them?
Some pursuing their retirement benefits for more than 20 years.
They can't find my name.
From lack of numbers to missing details, The reasons are just too many to deny even those pursuing gratuity for their loved ones who are deceased. Most of those affected, according to the Commission, are retired teachers and Kenya Railways staff. Since 2019, 318 complaints against the Pensions Department were reported. Of this, 174 cases have been resolved, while 144 remain unresolved. 274 cases were related to delays in processing pensions.
Nilikuwa nafuatilia Gracious bibi yangu. Aliaga 1997 mpaka wa leo niliambiwa niende nikangoje. Nikienda kwa Huduma Center naambiwa imetengenezwa inangojea kulipwa tu. Bei iko hapo tu inangojea kulipwa, ili alipwa treasury ina pesa.
Mugambi says the pain of chasing the dues, which is his right, are frustrating. He is not alone. Moses Amoko, a retired teacher, has been shuttling between Kisumu and Nairobi for the last 20 years to pursue his late wife Joan Achieng's gratuity. Achieng worked as a nurse before her death.
They would sit on these forms until they expire. And when I follow up, they tell me the forms, the application you have made have expired. Make a fresh application. To cut the long story short, now the third one is the one that has gone through. And that one went through last August.
At the pension there, I cannot lie. It is very frustrating when you go there. Those guys, they behave like they don't want to serve you. I don't know. They don't want to serve you. It's like they're doing you a favor.
Amoko, who retired in 2024, is hopeful that when his time comes, he will not face the nightmare he has encountered for the last 2 decades. Frustrations that the Office of the Ombudsman wants resolved in the next 2 months and save the elderly pensioners the anguish.
Director Pensions Department to process and pay all pending 144 claims within a period of 60 days, failure to which the Commission shall give the office holder a notice to show cause why he should not be declared unfit to hold the public office.
Dulo says they have recorded 48 retirees who have been waiting for between 16 and 25 years, while 20 others have been left in limbo for over 26 years. Sadly, some pass on and their relatives are left with the burden of chasing the retirement benefits. The Office of the Ombudsman, which pointed an accusing finger at Treasury for failing to disburse funds on time, also wants the services devolved and proper mechanisms to resolve complaints be established. Gatete Njoroge, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Right, it's time now for Road to Addis, and Olive Barrows is in Addis. Olive, over to you.
Thank you very much, Sam Gituku. Welcome to the AU headquarters. And from here, I bring you the stories surrounding the road to Addis for 3 candidates. Raila Odinga, and he is Kenya's candidate for the AUC chairmanship. Muhammad Ali Yusuf, who is Djibouti's candidate. And we also have Richard Randriamandrato, and he is from Madagascar. A lot of developments. But first, we begin with President William Ruto, who landed at the Bole International Airport today in the company of the First Lady Rachel Ruto. He made his way to Addis ahead of the Head of State Summit, which will be held on Saturday. Top on the items includes the election of the next AUC chairman. And as I mentioned at the very start, Kenya has her own candidate in Raila Odinga. They were held up in several closed-door meetings today. There was supposed to be a UNHCR event co-hosted by the Kenyan government this evening, but that did not take place. Now, the other items on the agenda also include justice and reparations for people of African descent, and that is the theme that will be launched for 2025 at the summit beginning Saturday, which is the 38th ordinary session of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government. Now, other than that, there will also be the question of the DRC, which will be discussed given the situation there, and we will have an interview later on with the EAC Secretary General Veronica Nduva, who has an update on the resolutions that were passed on Saturday by a joint summit of the EAC and SADC. All right, I did mention the president is in Addis Ababa, as is Raila Odinga, and 50 members of parliament from the National Assembly and the Senate will be making their way here ahead of the vote on Saturday. Now, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, has reiterated what was said by the Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary, Musalia Mudavadi, and that is that they're footing their own bill. Let's take a look at that report by Emmanuel To.
The AU Commission election is getting to the home stretch, and more leaders, including the members of parliament, are jumping on an opportunity to travel to Addis Ababa to give Kenya's candidate Raila Odinga moral support as he goes to the ballot on Saturday.
Order, members.
The Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, announcing that over 40 MPs had notified his office of their travel arrangements and the notifications were still coming.
I have received around 40 notifications from members intending to attend the activity. For clarity, these members will be traveling in their private capacities as citizens and leaders, and therefore will be self-sponsored.
The Speaker clarifying that only 4 members were being sponsored by the House, dismissing reports the taxpayer was paying for the bills.
The members are led by the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Defense, Intelligence and Foreign Relations, the Honorable Nelson Koech, CDS MP.
By Thursday afternoon, more members were in the last-minute dash to the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport to catch their flights.
But I've received several members requesting or writing to me, to the Speaker, recording their absence for the session today, about 6 or 7 from my side.
Mi naenda Addis Ababa leo jioni 6 p.m. saa 12 jioni, na ndege ni masaa mawili, nitafika saa 2 kamili. Na naenda kwa sababu mimi ni mfuasi na kiongozi katika chama cha ODM na mfuasi wa baba Raila Amolo Odinga.
Others planning to jet out Friday.
Mimi ni mama yule baba alitengeneza bana. Ndio. Na lazima niwe pale. Liwe liwala.
Kilinda kura.
Nisilinde kura, yangu ni maombi. Hata sitakaribia huko. Hata nikiwa pale ni maombi tu.
By jioni nitakuwa Addis Ababa ili kuweza kusimama na baba Jumamosi anapochaguliwa kama chairman wa AU. Mimi nimeambia familia, watoto na mama ya kwamba sasa Valentine itafanya next week, tumalize mambo ya baba kwanza.
Sources also indicate that a sizable number of senators are also traveling, with reports showing the House leadership were among the advance team. Several governors, most from the Odinga traditional backyards, and others who have embraced the broad-based arrangement, were dusting their flyer cards in readiness to be airborne. Ready Prime Cabinet Secretary, who also doubles up as the CS for Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, Musalia Mudavadi, has been camping in Addis Ababa and is leading another delegation of CSs to the Saturday's event. It is not clear who is footing the bills for those who are there in an official capacity. It will be historic whichever way it goes, and members of the National Assembly are now making their way to Addis Ababa to be part and parcel of the historic events on Saturday, where Kenya's Raila Amolo Odinga will be battling out for the AUC chairmanship. Emmanuel To, Citizen TV, Parliament, Nairobi.
Well, the East African community says it remains optimistic of the chances of its candidate, Raila Odinga, in the bid for AUC chair. And that is despite an advisory issued by the Southern Africa Development Community to its members, encouraging them to vote for one of their own. And that is Madagascar's Richard Randriamandrato. Let's take a look at what the EAC Secretary General, Veronica Nduva, had to say.
Regional economic communities have their own rules of procedure, engagement, modalities. So I think that is basically housekeeping matters of SADC.
How are you feeling with just hours to the vote?
Upbeat, as EAC, we met according to our rules of international candidatures. We got endorsement for our candidate, and ours is really to say best foot forward. We are looking forward to seeing a positive outcome.
It's been 5 days since a joint summit was held between the EAC and SADC on the situation in the DRC, and already we've seen a resumption of fighting despite the resolutions passed. Perhaps you can give us a progress report on where they are.
Yes, it has been 5 days, and remember we had 3 main resolutions. One, our chiefs of defense were to meet within 5 days. We all know the AU is happening, and therefore a number of them have accompanied their commander-in-chiefs. So soon after the AU, that is our priority, and we'll update on that. Secondly, we were supposed to have a joint meeting between our secretariats. We've had one here on the sidelines of the AU. We've made progress. We've agreed on the structure and how to engage, and that is really good. And then we were supposed to also have a meeting of the ministers within 30 days, and we've identified a date for that, and we are consulting with our principals. So I think we've made a lot of progress insofar as the summit directives.
Where are we with the establishment of a joint secretariat between the EAC and SADC?
We can't say set up because we already have existing and established secretariat. So there's an EAC secretariat, there is a SADC secretariat. It's working together so that we achieve the Nairobi-Luanda joint process.
Are you concerned about the resumption of fighting, because we're receiving reports that people are even being asked to leave camps?
Well, of course, I think the chair of the summit of EAC, he talked that peace processes and peace building is not like instant coffee. It's a process, it's a gradual process, there's negotiations, there's people to come on the table. But I think we remain optimistic that dialogue will give us good results.
And what kind of support are you looking at where the African Union is concerned, especially as regards financing the Joint Secretariat?
We all know that the AU is really the coordinating organ. It is the one that they say regional economic communities are building blocks. So they are the ones that drive the agenda of peace and security. We know there's going to be a meeting. So we look forward to resolutions, number one, on the issue of Eastern DRC, but secondly, a good and sustainable funding mechanism, not just with the AU, but with the other partners and stakeholders around.
As you're well aware by now, I am in the esteemed company of one Stephen Leto and Seth Olale here in Addis Ababa. If you're wondering where they are, well, they're in the building because not too long ago, the 46th ordinary session of the Executive Council of the African Union came to a close, clearing the way for the Head of State Summit on Saturday. They've also had a chance to interact with those who've been lobbying on the sidelines, including the entourage of President William Ruto, as well as Raila Odinga. Stephen Leto, Seth Olale, what did you glean from those conversations?
Inside the AUC, next to us is the Nelson Mandela Hall. This will be all where the center of activity will be taking place. Actually, right now, Seth, we are seeing orderlies now taking over and just preparations for tomorrow and subsequently Saturday. I also understand that there was a very technical strategic meeting by the Raila Odinga Secretariat today.
Yes, high-level meeting, closed door, of course. And this was, in a bit to have a strategic planning for the home stretch. The person who chaired that particular meeting was the principal secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Sinai Kodwe. Other members there, of course, members of the Secretariat, Ambassador Elkanah Odembo, Pauline Njoroge, Dr. Nancy Karugu, not forgetting Professor Makau Hatua, just to mention but a few. And this, they say, it's do or die. Actually, it is now, win it or lose it for them. And so they don't want to speak to us right now for obvious reason, but they are confident and they're saying that, this will yield fruits. But just not to forget that it is not Raila Odinga alone in the House. We also have the campaign team from the Djibouti candidate who has been here on a 2-day interministerial executive council of, the foreign affairs ministers.
Absolutely. Indeed, it's a do or die now, entering into a critical stage in some. And one thing we'll say more is what are the stakes in terms of the divide from the SADC to the EAC region to the north. Remember, there has been that has been issued, that the advisory by the Secretariat of the SADC advising its members to back the 16 members to back the Madagascar candidate. But remember, out of the 16, there are also some of the states in SADC who are also members of the East Africa community, including the Republic of Tanzania, who are also said to be backing Raila Odinga. But in the north, there are two critical countries that are the countries to watch in this election on Saturday. That is Morocco and South Africa. Sam.
Right, and the road to Addis continues with this week's episode of Data Point, which I told you that we are focusing on what the AU elections look in form of numbers, which I want us to start by taking a look at the election that we'll be having this year, or this Saturday. This is the 6th election since the year 2002, and of course the elections are for the chairperson, deputy chairperson, and 6 commissioners, creating 8 positions for the African Union Commission. Let's take a look at what that structure looks like. So of course, at the AU Commission, you have the chairperson, the seat that Raila Odinga is going for. You have the deputy chairperson. I'll be telling you which countries are going for that seat. Then the 6 commissioners, and then the members of staff. What do they do on a daily basis? So the work of the African Union Commission, this is the Secretariat of the African Union. They implement the African Union decisions, they coordinate activities, and they also manage the AU's daily operations for the continent. Now, the 2025 plan, this is how it looks. You can see those colors. From the northern side in red, the purple side is the western, the eastern side is in yellow, and the central part is in blue. The southern part is in, what do you call that? Turquoise blue or turquoise green? I don't know what exactly that is, but eastern region, including where Kenya lies, will be providing the chair. That's why you have candidates coming from this region. The northern side will be producing the deputy chairperson. That is the countries that you see there in red. The central side, the central region will be producing 2 commissioners. Remember I told you about 6 commissioners? The southern part will also be producing 2 commissioners. The western side will also be producing 2 commissioners, and that's how the positions are shared. Let's take a look at what else you need to know. Now, there are countries that will not be voting in this election. There are 6 of them because they have challenges. They have been sanctioned because some of them have been having some conflict and instability. There are Burkina Faso, there's Gabon, there's Guinea, there's Mali, Niger, and Sudan. They will not be taking part in this particular election. Something else that you need to reflect on is the candidates. Of course, you may have heard these names several times from Djibouti, from Kenya, and from Madagascar. Raila Odinga, Richard Randriamandrato from Madagascar, and Mohamed Ali Yusuf from Djibouti. They'll have to convince the rest of the continent to vote for them. That is the 49 countries that will be taking part in the election. What more do you need to know is that there are candidates for the deputy chair position. Now, the AU provides that you have to do gender parity. If you have the chairperson as a man, the deputy chair ideally should be a female. So there are candidates that have been fronted by different countries. In Morocco, they have Latifa Akhabach, who is a lady. There's Selma Malika from Algeria, a female. In the same country, they have produced Salah Francis, who is male. The country of Libya has produced Najat El Hajjaji, who is a female. And then Egypt has produced 2 candidates, Hanan Morsi and Mohammed Ahmed. That's a female and a male candidate. So we'll be seeing how that election will be panning out come Saturday. Then the process, this is how the process looks like. So the chair and deputy chairperson are elected by the assembly. This means the presidents, the heads of state and heads of government. The commissioners are elected by the executive council. This is the ministers of foreign affairs who just concluded their meeting this afternoon, as told by Stephen Leto and Seth Olale. The voting is by secret ballot, meaning you will not know which country voted for who, which country did not support your candidate. Now, what else do we need to know? Is that the first round will involve all candidates. So, for instance, the election for chair, where Raila Odinga is one of the candidates, all of them will take part in the first round. Then after that, they can do a maximum of 3 rounds, knowing that the threshold to win is a 2/3 majority. Now, 49 countries are taking part in this election. election. The 2/3 is 33 votes or 33 counties. Whichever candidate is first to get to that, they become the chairperson of the AUC. Should they not have a clear winner, even after the third round, then what happens is that the top two candidates will take the race and they'll be voted on, but still, you have to get 2/3 majority. If none of them is able to garner 2/3 majority, which is 33 countries voting for them, then the election will be suspended. If the election is suspended, the deputy chair who will have been elected is going to act as the AUC chair for a year until new elections are held by the African Union Commission. So that's what you need to know about what's happening at the AUC. And like I told you, Saturday is the day, and Citizen TV will be keeping you posted on the developments with the help of our crew in Addis Ababa. That's data point for this. Welcome back. Now, 4 in every 10 university students in Kenya have used alcohol and other forms of drugs in their lifetime. This is according to a recent survey that was done by the National Authority for the Campaign Against Alcohol and Drug Abuse, NACADA, which also revealed that over 8% of university students have severe addiction and should be placed in rehabilitation centers. Alcohol is most abused at 40%, while the use of cannabis sativa is at 10%, which is 5 times the national average. NACADA's report also revealed an unusual spike in the use of shisha among female students who are increasingly becoming vulnerable. Safina Chengoma now reports.
Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
In its latest report launched on Thursday, the National Authority for the Campaign Against Alcohol and Drug Abuse, NACADA, released grim statistics about the crisis in universities with a prevalence rate of 18.6%.
Generally speaking, 8.5% of the students in the universities should actually be in the rehabs.
Almost half of the university students have used at least one drug or substance of abuse in their lifetime, alcohol leading at 40.5%, followed by tobacco products like cigarettes at 13.4%, shisha at 10.9%, miraa and mogoka at 20.1%, while cannabis ranks high among the narcotic drugs.
In the whole country, cannabis is like 1.9%, but at the universities it's 10%, meaning that 5 times, when they are in the university, they are likely to take cannabis 5 times more than the general population.
The study also revealed that the burden is higher in private universities compared to public universities. Among students in the 3rd year of study and above, students accommodated outside the institution, as well as those who are self-sponsored. Trends also show that the menace is increasingly becoming a burden among female students. A majority of students access these drugs and substances at joints within and neighboring their learning institutions from fellow students, friends, online purchases, and some from non-teaching staff and lecturers.
It is true that lecturers intentionally invite students for going out and buying alcohol intentionally. Many young students, and especially female students, become victims of the same.
In many of the universities, we find that it's just a bar outside, but they tell us, but you know, this is an institution of higher learning. You can't do anything. These are students who are over 18.
CS Murkomen has proposed bringing the National Intelligence Service officers to universities to tame the abuse.
We used to be told when I was at the university that, you know, some of these students are not students. Yeah? They are police officers. They are busy. Why don't we go back there, IG, to make sure that we are having intelligence officers working within the university and with the university students in dealing with drugs and drug abuse.
We want to enhance the capability of the anti-narcotics drugs unit to the levels of the anti-terror police unit.
Other recommendations include student mentorship, parental involvement, strengthening of institutions' guidance and counseling departments, and provision of affordable rehabilitation services.
Now, Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Mbadi has affirmed that Kenya's economy remains resilient despite domestic and external challenges, attributing this to sound government policies and economic diversification. Speaking during a press briefing in Nairobi, CS Mbadi revealed that Kenya's gross public debt to GDP ratio has dropped to 66.7% in June 2024, down from 71.9% in June 2022, attributing it to a combination of tax policies, spending cuts and economic growth strategies. He noted that the stock of public debt now stands at 10.56 trillion shillings.
Number two,
we took the tax laws amendment bill in Parliament. One of the objectives of that tax laws amendment bill was to give some reprieve to salaried Kenyans. And that is why I was very unhappy with people who are distorting facts and inciting Kenyans against that bill, because it was helping cushion Kenyans. Private sector can borrow from banks, invest, expand, and create more job opportunities. So we are likely to see the benefits of reduced interest rates in the coming months.
Kenyan entrepreneurs and businesses have been challenged to strategically position themselves for emerging opportunities ahead of the upcoming World Chambers Federation Africa Summit in Nairobi. This emerged during a meeting organized by the Nairobi chapter of the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which recently brought together policymakers, business leaders and investors to discuss strategies for accelerating Africa's economic growth.
As we talk about 2050, we are saying we are going to be 2.5 billion people. We are going to have 40% of the working population globally. It's going to be 25% of the world's population, but 40% is the working population. Shall we be the leaders in terms of manufacturing? And for us to be able to achieve that in the next 25 years, it has to start somewhere.
So we are here to align our priorities, to set the agendas for the upcoming WCF African Summit, and to ensure African business are connected to the market and to all the networking possible. Number two is to strengthen the partnership, collaborate across borders to unlock new trade and investment opportunities. The third one, which is the last for now, is that we want to champion African solution.
Telecommunications service provider Airtel Kenya has embarked on a plan to increase its market share by targeting unbanked population in Kenya. The telco's CEO, Ashish Malhotra, says more innovative actions will be implemented to lower the cost of transactions on mobile money and the value of internet bundles. Jimmy Mbogo reports.
The telco service provider Airtel unveiled a raft of measures aimed at enticing customers. Airtel customers who currently enjoy a free Airtel to Airtel transaction cost will also be receiving a cashback offer on all transaction fees as airtime when using Airtel Pay bills, while those withdrawing from agents will get their withdrawal fees refunded as airtime.
It doesn't mean that transactions in this country must be so high, for us to make money. Okay, if you're paying, any of the pay bills, there's a charge. That charge doesn't have to be that high. Okay, it's actually we're still making money at being more affordable. Right? If you're going to withdraw, right, there's also a charge. That charge, even now, as we're saying, you're being given back. You're being given back as airtime, which then provides value to customers.
The telco, which has been a strong proponent of mobile money interoperability, has increased its presence with over 2 million merchants outlets across the country.
But I would say now 93% to 93.5% of our country is covered by Airtel network, and we moved quite a distance in the last 1.5 so it's around two and a half years, and as I said, it's now bado. We're not done yet. We are continuously investing in the country. We are just closing on our plans for the coming year also, and rolling out more and more network.
The telco has also introduced new data and voice products, with customers set to access 30 gigabytes of data for 1,000 shillings only. with room to roll over the unused data into the new month upon renewal. Jimmy Mbogo, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
The Consultative Group on International Agricultural Research has launched a new regional skilling hub in Kenya to enhance agricultural innovation and collaboration across East and Southern Africa. The hub aims to accelerate science-based solutions for food, land and water transformation in the region. The hub will facilitate multi-stakeholder partnerships connecting farmers, cooperatives, governments, research institutions, universities, civil society and the private sector.
Transformative as well as intense.
This is really ensuring that we develop solutions that are needed, and we have to develop these solutions very quickly. Coming together will help us to do it. Secondly, it's also a conversation place. We want to hear from various stakeholders. What are actually the key challenges? What do we need to do, and how should we do it?
So many different important things that the scale is going to help, whether it's seeds bringing to the farmers, whether solutions of how farmers do better farming, whether it's nutritious, dense crops.
But this didn't exist 5-10 years ago. And what is happening now, which is very exciting, is that Nairobi is becoming a hub for not only development, as we know, but also scaling science.
And accountants from across the globe have convened in Nairobi to address AI's disruptive impact on the profession. The gathering follows recent developments in the technology space, especially in China. The World Economic Forum projects that artificial intelligence will displace over 9 million jobs, with machine and algorithm adoption expected to surge in the next 5 years. While accountants remain confident in the sector's job retention, they are urging an overhaul of the education system to equip professionals with the skills needed to navigate emerging trends like artificial intelligence.
In other countries, in other jurisdictions, it's done at very low, at primary level. Okay, it's not just using tablets and playing around. No, introduce them to the challenges, but also know where the limitations reside. So have them begin to interact with it as early as possible as part of the curricula. But that means starting off with the tutors first, the educators, make them comfortable enough.
Artificial intelligence will help us to bring down costs. And the cost of compliance, consultancies, and so on, not only will come down, but also will be much more easy to access and spread. And these are big advantages for growing economies like Kenya.
This system is going to provide people with time to think, to do a better job at taxes, to a better job at presenting financial statements. That's the difference. That's where the difference is going to reside. Not in someone losing his job, but in people doing their jobs much better. And also, I must add, we will also improve our quality of life, because as accountants, we work from Monday to Sunday, 14 hours a day.